What's up, it's Kate here at Marvelous Videos. Today we look at all the different vampire types classified. Vampires have been a staple of the horror genre for quite a while now, and man's obsession with Dracula has persisted. Vampires have come to represent not only individual needs and anxieties, but also the ethical, religious, and sexual culture of different ages, revealing humanity's developing ideas towards everything, from the supernatural and sickness to fashion and relationships. There have been numerous interpretations of the ancient myth of these nocturnal bloodsuckers. Vampires can be unpleasant or romantic. They range from disgusting to beautiful, and from spiteful to misunderstood. While some vampirical clichés stay consistent, some features vary depending on the type of vampire in question. Monsters in our mind have virtually always acted as expressions of real-life fears, from ancient myths to modern-day fairy tales. The various interpretations ascribed to different types of monsters over the years only adds to our understanding of the intricacy of our phobias, and the new forms they assume as time passes. Vampires are an especially fascinating subject to research in this sense. Today we have all the different types of vampires that you have seen on screen, classified into different categories for your ease. So, which type of vampire do you most strongly identify? And what does that indicate about your outward self, as well as the dark secrets you keep hidden? Without further ado, here are the 9 different sorts of vampires we've seen throughout the centuries. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Number 1. Homo-Wampyrus Draco. These ones are your regular, run-of-the-mill vampires who are out and about mingling with humans when the sun is no longer out. This is the most frequent type of true vampire, having concentrations in North America, the United Kingdom, and Western Europe. Wampyrus Draco resembles humans, but has strong retractable canine fangs in their upper jaws. The Draco vampire has a medium to low tolerance for sunlight, and will die if exposed for more than a few hours. So in that case, they definitely embody what we have come to know about vampires through ancient lore and pop culture. Because they have an ostensibly human appearance, they can readily integrate into human society, often obtaining honest employment as night watchmen, club bouncers, or similar, to make ends meet since they can only work at night. They typically obtain blood by having human friends pose as donors, under the delusion that the vampire is truly a sanguinarious species. Yet, like with humans, there are others who would rather force what they desire. Unfortunately, it's these few aggressive individuals who have established the stereotype for the entire Homo-Wampyrus species. In recent years, films such as The Lost Boys and Blade have popularized the Draco vampire and increased tolerance among humans, even to the point where some people seek out vampires in order to become one themselves. These are usually the vampires girls are swooning over and boys want to be like, because of the allure attached to existing as a beautiful, immortal beast. Number 2. Godlike magically infused vampires. These are the kinds of vampires who are extremely powerful and have the ability to change time and space with their dark magic. They have humanoid appearances but are extremely powerful vampire entities who live extravagantly. They are still blood dependent for food, and they are extremely intelligent in science and the dark arts. They are usually very sophisticated and have a great sense of style. They are formidable and almost impossible to defeat, so try not to get on the wrong side of one of them. Vlad Dracula Tepes from Castlevania is one of the best examples of this type. Dracula, or Count Vlad Tepes, is the main antagonist of the Castlevania series, and the final boss of the majority of the games. Count Dracula is an immortal vampire who wields the power of chaos, and is regarded as the king of the night and the embodiment of evil. Many lesser creatures of darkness and obsessive humans are fanatically devoted to him, believing that he will cleanse the world of its tainted state and usher in a new order. As a Dark Lord, Dracula possesses many supernatural abilities that are not characteristic of a vampire, as he clearly outperforms each of them, becoming more akin to a demon king, as mentioned in some manual descriptions or enemy data. Chaos, an ancient powerful entity that feeds on evil and darkness from the hearts of mankind, granted him dominion over demons and monsters from the demon realm. His resurrection cycles are also fueled by this force and serve as a means to resurrect him in a black mass, performed by his loyal followers who know the ideal moment and years to hold it, as humanity forgets about God and loses faith with the passage of time. Alucard from Hellsing is another great example. Alucard, also known as Count Dracula, is the main character in the anime manga series Hellsing. He's the trump card of the Hellsing organization and a powerful transcendent vampire. He's a cross between Count Dracula and Vlad the Impaler. Alucard as a vampire demonstrates an astounding and overwhelming array of supernatural attacks and vampire abilities. He does, however, have vast powers that surpass those of regular vampires, making him a Vampirical of godly power. He possesses every power imaginable, ranging from immortality to regeneration and superhuman abilities in every conceivable way.
Holy shit.
Number 3. Prehistoric vampires. Ancient vampires are vampires who have been hiding for millennia and are waiting for their chance to emerge and take over. They are typically depicted as a separate humanoid breed that evolved alongside humans, but due to their parasitic nature, they have been forced into hiding, or have been nearly completely obliterated by humans. They are simply another species found on this earth, and have evolved over the centuries just like humans. Thus, they are also hunted because humans will always hunt down anything that threatens them. The strain is a good example of vampires of this kind. Their biology is similar to that of parasitic creatures rather than the supernaturally immortal undead of popular culture. But they do have supernatural roots in their origin because they are essentially perverse creations of the Master, one of 7 ancients who are splintered fragments of a fallen angel known as Osriel. The ancients are inextricably linked to the human world at its highest levels. They assume the initiate's wealth, which allows them to insulate themselves and assert their global influence. The ancients are the ancestors of vampires and strain worms that spread the vampire parasite. Number 4. Female succubus or male incubus vampires. In folklore, a succubus is a female demon or supernatural entity who appears in dreams to seduce men, usually through sexual activity. Repeated sexual activity with a succubus, according to religious traditions, can lead to poor physical or mental health and even death. Succubi prefer to present themselves as beautiful, alluring, and persuasive women. They seek out males and during sexual encounters drain vital essences and fluids such as blood, breath, life energy, and sperm, eventually killing their victim if allowed to feed on them for an extended period of time. Succubi do not need to be physically present because they can visit their victims in their dreams. Succubi will use the sperm they collect to impregnate innocent women. A man who truly desires a succubus can summon one through magical incantations. Its male counterpart is the incubus. According to mythological and legendary traditions, an incubus is a male demon who lies upon sleeping women in order to engage in sexual activity with them. Some believe that union with an incubus resulted in the birth of witches, demons, and deformed human offspring in medieval Europe. Succubus from Amateur Night VHS 2012 is a classic example of this sexy yet terrifying vampire. There isn't much known about Lily. Her story appears to begin in an Irish pub. She meets 3 guys in the pub, Shane, Patrick, and Clint. It's revealed in the motel room that she has a lustful and bloodthirsty side to her personality. As a succubus, Lily has demonstrated superhuman strength, capable of killing people with minimal effort. She easily subdued a man, drank his blood, and ripped his genitals off with her bare hands. She can also transform into a bat-like creature in stages, the first of which is manifested by her sprouting fangs capable of tearing through flesh. Her forehead splits to indicate the second stage. When she reaches the third and final stage, she develops large wings that allow her to fly.
As the last of your wretched family.
One of the most iconic Succubus to ever grace our screens is Jennifer Check, played by Megan Fox in Jennifer's Body from 2009. Jennifer Check was a high school student who was unwillingly sacrificed by the band Low Shoulder, resulting in her transformation into a succubus. She seduced boys on the school campus in order to feed on their flesh and blood, in order to sustain her life and nourish her strength. She was possessed by a succubus who bestowed superhuman strength, speed, seduction, beauty, and immortality on her. There was one catch. She would forever feast on human flesh, especially young male flesh, in order to maintain her eternal youth, or she would decay and die. Number 5. Medically enhanced vampires. This refers to the breed of vampires that have been medically enhanced in a laboratory. They can be looked at as genetically modified people who have been turned into vampires. Reaper strain, Blade 2. Blade 2's antagonistic species is the Reapers, who are vampiric abominations. They are a new breed of vampires that are far more powerful and lethal than regular vampires. Originally, these beasts are created through extensive research of vampire DNA, which spawns the namesake virus known as the Reaper strain, in the hopes of creating new vampires known as Daywalkers, which lack their natural weaknesses. Unfortunately, instead of creating vampires with similar characteristics to the heroes, they end up creating monstrous abominations capable of turning other people into Reapers, and eradicating both vampires and mankind if not destroyed. Man-Bat from Batman. Man-Bat is Batman's adversary, first appearing in Detective Comics 400, illustrated by Neil Adams. Dr. Kirk Langstrom, a bat researcher, creates an extract intended to give humans the bat's sonar sense and tests the formula on himself because he's going deaf. While it works, it has a horrifying side effect. It gradually transforms him into a hideous humanoid bat-like monster. Langstrom later refines his serum, allowing him to retain human intelligence while in bat form, and control over his transformations. However, as he loses control of his transformations, he becomes a slave to his own experiments. He can fly and use echolocation like a bat, and he has superhuman speed and strength. Morbius from Spider-Man. Dr. Michael Morbius stalks the night as Morbius the living vampire after a desperate attempt to save his own life. Morbius sought a cure for the rare blood disease using vampire bat DNA. It transformed him into a bloodthirsty creature of the night and a pseudo-vampire. Morbius, who was initially an adversary of Spider-Man and Blade, became a vigilante while struggling with his insatiable thirst for blood and subsequent attempts to cure his horrifying condition. Morbius has been transformed into a vampire-like being, and as a result he possesses a number of superhuman abilities similar to those of true vampires. Morbius is not a true vampire because the source of his transformation is scientific rather than supernatural. Among other things, he possesses superhuman strength, speed, reflexes, and the ability to regenerate. Number 6. Nosferatu vampires, or Homo-Wampyrus Nosferatu. Nosferatu vampires are vampires with a deformed body, or, because of their teeth, they are also known as the rat vampire. They were named after the vampire in the 1922 film Nosferatu, whose vampire design they closely resemble. They are less common than the Wampyrus Draco, but they are still quite numerous. The transition from human to vampire has not been easy for the Nosferatu. Every step of the way, the individual's immune system has fought the infection, forcing the virus to mutate in order to survive. As a result, the vampire's appearance is disfigured and twisted. The typical example of this kind has a high-domed head that is usually bald and crisscrossed by a network of livid veins. A long, thin, drawn face with deep creases or deeply sunken eyes. The ears are frequently large and pointed or membranous, and the nose is upturned to reveal the nostrils. Long tapering fingers, often with an extra joint, and sharply pointed and discoloured nails are also characteristics of the Nosferatu. The vampire will stand with a stoop or hunch, because standing upright will cause pain in the vampire's twisted spine, which can lead to a slip disc or worse. Wampyrus Nosferatu are secretive and loners, due to their appearance, and they rarely mix with humans or even other vampires. They obtain blood covertly, often from sleeping humans or farm animals. Wampyrus Nosferatu, like Wampyrus Draco, are found all over the world, with concentrations in Africa, South America, the Caribbean, and Japan. Nosferatu vampires are moderately sensitive to sunlight and can tolerate it for hours at a time on a dull day. They have a limited range of shape-shifting abilities, the extent of which varies from person to person. Kurt Barlow from Salem's Lot 1979 is one of the best examples of this kind. Kurt Barlow was a master vampire who terrorized the small town of Jerusalem's Lot in Stephen King's story Salem's Lot. He's a very old vampire who claims to have predated Christianity, making him ancient. However, he is classified in this category due to his appearance. His skin is as white as parchment, and he has powerful front teeth and long fingers. Barlow possesses all of the traditional vampire abilities. He's given the power of telekinesis in the 1979 miniseries, which he didn't have in the novel. Because he's unable or unwilling to speak directly to humans, his henchmen and followers speak on his behalf. He most likely communicates with his allies through his telekinesis. The Hive Guardian vampire from Priest 2011 can be classified as a more extreme form of this classification. Vampiric in nature, the Hive Guardian is a creature. It's surprisingly agile for its size. The Hive Guardian has been seen on numerous occasions, most notably in former vampire hives. The Hive Guardian appears to have a keen sense of smell or hearing, because it can easily locate its enemies. The Hive Guardian was a creature that the priest had never seen before. Its appearance proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the vampire army was alive and well. In nature, this creature resembles a dog, and has weak spots on its head and stomach. They are quite deformed and look like they're stuck in between a human and a vampire. Number 7. Homo-Wampyrus Chiroptera. These are the bat type of vampires. The bat vampire is not to be confused with the vampire bat, and is the rarest of the various types of vampires and is found primarily in Africa, New Zealand and South America, with slightly larger populations in China and India. This vampire appears to be quite human on the outside, with the exception of a slight point to the ears and a lantern jaw. Socially, they get along well with humans, but dislike crowds, preferring small groups of friends which may or may not include other vampires. Chiroptera is the most sensitive to sunlight of all vampires, experiencing blistering and intense pain even after a brief exposure. They are the only vampires who can fully shapeshift into a large bat-like creature. Their ability to do so is determined by their racial origin, length of time as a vampire, and food availability. More information on this talent can be found in the shapeshifting post. Marcus from the Underworld series is the best example of this kind. Marcus Corvinus was a vampire elder and a member of the Corvinus clan, the progenitor of the entire vampire species. Along with his twin brother, William Corvinus, the first werewolf, he was the main antagonist of Underworld evolution. He is one of Alexander Corvinus' sons. Marcus's powers were superior to those of the rest of his kind, including those of Victor and Emilia, because he was the first vampire. His transformation into a hybrid greatly enhanced his already formidable abilities, and gave him the ability to transform at will into a humanoid bat-like creature. He had enough control over his transformation to turn only his hand into a claw and summon his wings, and presumably could change other parts of his body and even talk while transformed. He was also a skilled hand-to-hand combatant, and most likely a weapon expert. Number 8. Daywalkers. When vampires are exposed to direct sunlight, they usually suffer from severe pain and a loss of power, turn to dust or even burst into flames. This classification is the inverse case. Vampires who can freely walk around in the sunlight. Either nothing happens or they may feel mild discomfort. They are sometimes stronger at night, with daylight robbing them of some of their abilities, but otherwise, they're fine. In fact, this was the norm in traditional vampire lore and early vampire fiction. Lord Ruthven, Varney the Vampire, Carmilla, and Dracula could all walk around in broad daylight. And while some of these were used to sleeping during the day, daylight posed no threat to them. A common deception is to only have vampire-human crossbreeds be immune to sunlight, and they are known as Daywalkers since they can walk around during the day without any harm to them. Blade from Blade is one of the most famous Daywalkers to walk this earth. A Daywalker is a type of vampire or half-vampire who can walk around in the daylight without being harmed. Blade is a Daywalker as a result of his mother being bitten and transformed into a vampire while pregnant. He seeks retribution from Deacon Frost, the vampire who murdered Blade's mother and gave him his abilities. Daywalkers still have the vampiric need for blood. Blade staves it off with injections of a special serum, but his body develops a tolerance to it over time, and he must develop a new one. Whistler claims that Blade ages similarly to normal humans. Vampires do have a much lower body heat signature than humans, which is especially noticeable when viewed through a heat vision scanner, but Blade has a normal human heat signature. Daywalkers are extremely uncommon. Vampires are envious of Daywalker abilities and would have attempted to create more Daywalkers. Selene from Underworld is another great example of Daywalkers. Selene is a former vampire death dealer who was sired by the vampire elder Victor after he slaughtered her family without her knowledge. She was born in 1383 to Hungarian parents. She eventually evolves into the first of the vampire Corvinus strain hybrid. She's currently one of the new vampire elders along with David and Lena, and thus one of the vampire race's leaders. Selene is the main character in the Underworld series, including Underworld Evolution, Underworld Awakening, and Underworld Blood Wars. Selene has the UV light immunity of a pure immortal, due to her vampire-human hybrid nature. Number 9. Hybrids. Half vampire, half Lycan. Werewolf-vampire hybrids are a cross between a vampire and a werewolf. They have both species' abilities, making them twice as powerful. Hybrids have the abilities of both vampires and werewolves, but to a greater extent, making them extremely powerful supernatural creatures. Hybrids have a wide range of additional abilities. A hybrid's bite is fatal to vampires due to their werewolf heritage, but the hybrid bite takes effect faster than a normal werewolf bite. A vampire can be healed by hybrid blood from the bites of other hybrids or werewolves. In addition, hybrids have the ability to shapeshift and transform at will and whenever they want, as opposed to a normal wolf who is forced to transform only once on a full moon. Without the use of a mystical stone, hybrids can move around during the day and in the sun. Michael Corvin is a great example. In the Underworld franchise, Michael Corvin is a modern-day descendant of the Corvinus clan. His paternal grandparents were from Hungary, but he was born in the United States. He studied medicine and had the goal of becoming a surgeon. After Lucien and Selene, he becomes the first Lycan vampire hybrid. Michael Corvin is the first and only Lycan vampire hybrid known to exist. This variant is completely resistant to both silver and sunlight. This type of hybrid, like any other vampire, must feed on blood and will become ill if they consume solid food. The limits of this type, like those of all hybrids, are unknown. Another example is Niklaus Michelson. He is the original hybrid who first appears in the Vampire Diaries and then the originals. Not only is he the original vampire, but he is also the first hybrid. Simply being a hybrid granted him immense power and abilities, even beyond that of an original vampire. He has super strength and speed and could take on any other species with terrifying ease. He could also turn others, along with using both vampire and werewolf power while fighting. This brings us to the end of our classification. Which classification does your favourite vampire fit into? Let us know in the comments. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks!